The Elixir of Immortality. Mimei Ogawa. It was a summer night. 3 children gathered under a large oak tree in the village and began talking. While the day had been hot, the night was refreshingly cool, particularly under the oak tree, where a gentle breeze made it even more pleasant. The sun had set behind the western mountains, painting the sky with a faint red glow that lingered between the trees. Eventually, even this subtle hue disappeared entirely. The night sky took on a deep, dark blue, like peering into a profound abyss. As time passed, the number of stars grew, their light glittering more vividly. "Let's tell another fairy tale," said Otsu. "It's Hei's turn today," added Ko. These 3 boys, who were the same age and attended the village elementary school together, were close friends. They often played different games, but on summer nights like this, they would gather under the oak tree to share and retell the various fairy tales they had heard or remembered. The leaves of the oak tree rustled softly, creating a sound that resonated in the dark, glass-like sky. For a moment, the boys fell silent until Otsu turned to Hei and said, "Come on, tell us a story." The youngest of the 3, Hei, gazed up at the sky, lost in thought. At that moment, a faint sound of a ship's whistle echoed from the distant northern sea. The 3 boys listened to the sound, letting their imaginations wander. "All right, I'll tell you a story," Hei said. The starlight reflected in his bright, clever black eyes, making them sparkle. "Oh, we're listening. Hurry and start," said Ku and Otsu eagerly. Hei began his tale. Long ago, in China, there was an emperor who had conquered all the lands and built a magnificent palace. He lived a life of unparalleled glory and splendor. The emperor had everything he desired and lacked nothing. Yet he began to wish for something seemingly impossible: to live forever. He yearned to remain in this world for thousands, even tens of thousands of years. However, no one in history had ever lived beyond 100 years. This saddened the emperor deeply. One day, he summoned a shaman and asked how he might achieve eternal life. The shaman, employing secret rituals, sought the guidance of the gods. She said, "Far to the east, across the sea, there is a land. In the northern part of that land stands a high mountain called Mount Kinpu-sen. At its peak lies a natural goblet carved from the rocks. This goblet is offered to the heavens, and each night, as the stars pass over the mountain, they drop a single dewdrop into the goblet. Over 1,000 or 10,000 years, the goblet has filled with the purest water. Whoever drinks this water shall never die. It is a rare treasure, a true elixir of immortality. If you drink it, you will be freed from the grasp of death," the shaman told the emperor. "Is Mount Kinpu-sen that mountain over there?" Otsu pointed towards the distant mountain and asked Hei. "Yes, that's the one." "My grandfather said so," Hei replied. "Did you hear this story from your grandfather?" Ku asked. "Yes," Hei answered lightly before continuing his tale. The emperor gathered his retainers and asked if anyone would be willing to retrieve the elixir. The retainers exchanged uneasy glances, and no one readily volunteered. Finally, one elderly retainer stepped forward and said, "I will go." This retainer was known for his unwavering loyalty, so the emperor entrusted him with the task. "I command you to journey across the eastern sea to the isolated island, climb Mount Kinpu-sen in the northern region of that land, and retrieve the Elixir of Immortality. Return safely with it," the emperor instructed earnestly. The old retainer respectfully accepted the emperor's command, bid farewell to his wife, children, relatives, and friends, and embarked on his journey eastward by ship. At that time, there were no steamships. He relied entirely on the winds to carry him across the waves, traveling day and night towards the east. On the ship, the retainer navigated by gazing at the stars at night and observing the rising sun each morning to determine the cardinal directions. Beyond this, there was nothing to guide him, only the endless expanse of the azure sea wherever he looked. Sometimes, the winds would blow the ship off course unexpectedly, and at other times, violent waves threatened to capsize it. For months upon months, he drifted across the sea. Finally, one day, he caught sight of an island on the distant horizon and rejoiced greatly, summoning the strength to press onward. When the retainer landed on the island, he found it to be much larger than he had anticipated. He asked the local inhabitants if they knew where Mount Kinpusen was, but no one had ever heard of it. At that time, the area was scarcely inhabited, and there were no proper roads to speak of. Undeterred, the retainer spent many years wandering the land in search of the mountain. Eventually, he heard rumors of a place called Mount Kinpusen and braved numerous hardships to ascend it. But how could such an old retainer climb such a high mountain? Ku asked in disbelief. Exactly. I've heard that no one has ever been able to climb that mountain, Otsu said, echoing Ku's amazement. Didn't an expedition once attempt to climb it, and some of the team fell and died? That's why no one tries anymore, Ku added. But my grandfather said the retainer was determined and somehow managed to climb it, Hei replied. Really? So, what happened next? Otsu and Ku eagerly pressed on. Hei resumed his story. When the retainer finally reached the summit, he found, as the shaman had described, a stone goblet filled with crystal clear water. He carefully poured the water into a small flask he had brought with him and began his descent, eager to return to the emperor and present him with the elixir. After descending the mountain, he waited by the shore each day, watching for passing ships. However, not a single vessel came into view. Day after day, he gazed out at the open sea, hoping in vain for a ship to appear. Eventually, the strain of waiting took its toll, and he fell ill. The illness worsened, and in the end, he passed away in a distant, unfamiliar land, never able to fulfill his mission. And then what happened? Ku asked Hei. That's the end of the story, Hei replied, gazing up at the starry sky. Since the retainer died, the emperor must have died as well, Otsu said. Of course. The emperor couldn't drink the elixir of immortality, so he must have grown old and passed away like everyone else, Hei said. What a fool that retainer was. He should have drunk some of the elixir himself, then carried the rest in the flask to the emperor. That way, neither of them would have died, Otsu said, laughing at the retainer's lack of wisdom. Maybe he thought it would be disloyal to drink it before the emperor, Ku suggested. The three boys sat under the oak tree, gazing toward Mount Kinpusen, which stood at the southwestern border of their village. They wondered if the spring of immortality might still exist at the mountain's summit, letting their imaginations wander. Against the starry night sky, the sharp peak of the mountain loomed dark, and atop it, a single golden star twinkled brightly. The children recalled the mysterious tales their grandmothers and mothers had told them, stories of candles descending from the heavens each night, or the flickering lights of offerings to the mountain god rising through the air to reach the summit. Do you think gods really exist? The youngest, Hei asked with a sigh, unable to suppress his curiosity. Our teacher said they don't, Otsu replied, recalling their teacher's words. How can the teacher be so sure they don't exist? Ku interjected, questioning Otsu's statement. I think they do exist, Hei said, his bright eyes filling with tears as he gazed at the stars. If they don't, then who created those stars, the mountains, this earth, and us humans? The oak tree rustled in the night wind, its leaves whispering softly. And who created us humans? Hay cried out, his voice trembling. For a while, the three boys sat in silence, each lost in deep thought. It's all so mysterious, they finally murmured to one another. By then, the northern summer night seemed to have grown late.